Bally Knight Rider MPU with the craptastic old sockets, craptastic headers, and some alkaline corrosion. And the backside of the OEM rectifier board, which I will replace. Testing the connections of a Weebly rectifier board to a Bally transformer. So I've got my meter set to AC voltage first to test the 6.3 volts AC, and it says 7.3, and that's good. Flipping over to DC, here's the 6.3 volts DC, and that is good. 230 volts. It's measuring about 182, which is really about normal. And then 43 volts, which is 44.9, so that one is good. And the last one is this 12 volt measurement, which is coming out to be 13. So I have wired this correctly. And I kind of like this Weebly board. I wish the test points were at the top where the Bally and Stern rectifier boards traditionally are, but this board I bought as a kit from Andrew, and it comes with everything you need, so it's kind of relaxing to sit down and put these things together. I wish the connectors J1, J2, and J3 were labeled a little larger. They are labeled, but they're right down there in some tiny font. But other than that, this is a good solid rectifier board, and admittedly that's nitpicking. So cool. Thanks. And let's use my lamp driver board tester that I got from a fellow in Europe. I'll have to find the link to this thing, but it's very handy for testing lamp driver boards on the bench. So I'm powering on, and it's got an ESP32 microcontroller on the board, and it says press start for lock-on tests. So theoretically, at any SCR that was locked on would be blinking at this point in time, but none are blinking, so we've got nothing locked on. So I'm going to press the button again, and it says press start for all lamp tests. So this is the good part. In the video, it looks like they're sort of chasing like on Star Trek, but they're not doing that in real life. They're flickering or blinking. And so I just go down the list and see what's not lit up. And 51 is not lit, and 59 are not lit. And then over here, those are all lit. So 51 is right here, and 59 is right here. So those two, originally 2N5060s, I replaced with 2N5064 these days, and we'll come back and test it again. All right, presto changeo. I have changed out these two 2N5060s. I'll remark them so the client knows which ones I've changed. And let's start locked on test, get past that. And now all lamps test. So it was 51 and 59, and you can see 51's operating, and so is 59. This is a nice little tester for on the bench. You don't have to connect it up to a working CPU, etc. And I love the way that these little boards, the fella used surface mount resistors and LEDs to make them as small as possible. You can also use these boards on the bench without the big ESP32 driver, and all you got to do is provide about 6 volts AC if you want to have them operate correctly. So that's what this extra connector is. So this board is good to go. Thanks again. Using a couple of rivets to repair through holes to the ground plane. And on the bench with the Knight Rider voltage regulator solenoid driver board, and I've got it connected to an Altec MPU, the venerable Altec MPU. I love the Altec MPU. And we are in diagnostic test, and we're about ready to come around to coil 1 again. You can see there it is, 3, 4, 5. So this is going to walk all the way up this chain until right there where the flipper power enable relay fires. This driver board is regulating the voltage to 5.08, which is perfect. So the next thing to do after I've replaced 1, 2, 3, 4 transistors. There are a few resistors in the path up to this 3081 that had some corrosion on them, along with that 0.01 microfarad cap. So I've corrected all that. That is not my cap, but that's a newer cap. It's okay. That is my trim pot back there. The original trim pots were garbage, so I have replaced that. So I'm going to connect it up to its MPU and see what else we can find. So here we are with the Knight Rider MPU on the bench. I've replaced all 4 of the headers on the board. This J5 is not used on games like Knight Rider, so I can leave that one where it is. I've replaced the 40-pin sockets for the 6800 and both 6821s. Replaced the always crappy socket for the 5101, the 6810, and I made a combined ROM for Knight Rider, and it goes into U2. This is outlined in the pin wiki along with the jumper arrangement that needs to be implemented. I've got all 3 boards on the bench, the lamp driver board and the solenoid driver board. Some folks ask about this 330 microfarad cap up here. That's for the high voltage output. Generally, that doesn't need to be replaced. Let's boot it. This game has got a quite striking emerald green LED on it. I've lost track of how many counts, but it does blink 7 times. Score displays are up, and a few lamps are coming on. So we're going to go into lamp test as soon as I find the other end of my custom probe. It's connected to ground on one end, and I'm going to ground the top pin of the cabinet switch input right now. And the displays go blank. And my various generations of lamp test boards, which are all obsoleted by the prior test board that I showed you, are demonstrating that the lamps being driven at each of the 3 output connectors are working correctly. So the next test, I believe, is solenoid test. So I'm going to go over here to my homemade solenoid tester. I was wrong. Display test is next. Those are Pennytech Uno displays. They are quite striking in real life. I really like those displays. All right, now let's try a solenoid test. One. Now these aren't going in order because, in my opinion, Bally wasn't smarter or as smart as Stern, and they chose to drive them in some other game order that they chose or they like better. Anyway, we are driving these solenoids correctly. I forgot to show the output voltage of the driver board. It is 172 for the high voltage. One more grounding of that pin, and we are into switch test. And I wanted to make a new switch tester for Bally games, because Bally games rotate the darn switch matrix 90 degrees, and it makes it kind of a hassle. So I bought this switch tester from Andrew, aka Mr. Weebly, and this is all of column 1. And I like it. I would have preferred better quality buttons on here, but I understand that when you outsource manufacturing to probably an overseas manufacturer, you and you're going for low cost, that this is a probable output. So it works. You can see I changed it a little bit. He was thoughtful enough to include the possible 6 rows for some games, like I think Medusa is one of them, but typically I only use the 5, so I rewired things, and here is my 5x8 switch matrix for Bally games. And that, let's see, we've done coils, we've done lamps, We have done the voltages and the switch matrix. There's nothing left to test on here. These are the audits and adjustments that you could set here, but I'm going to skip all that. Power it. Oh, it went through a power up sequence because I reached the end of it there. And we are back up and running again. So thank you so much for sending it. This one had a little bit of light corrosion at the bottom of the CPU. So I've taken care of all that, and I've installed a super cap as the memory backup on this Bally Knight Rider board set. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sending the boards.